Bless the Lord, O my soul, and all that is within me, bless his holy name.
Thank you for tuning into Armor of God again. And as always, thank you so much for taking a little bit of your time to be here with us. So hopefully all of you will be learning a lot from this video as well. Anyway, before I share any clips of priests here with you, I'd like to share this clip of a doctor sharing his story, and I'm just curious as to how you make of this. Please listen to this for a moment.
So I'm an ER doctor and I have a story that is 100% true and still gives me chills to this very day. Many years ago, I was working in the ER and I got a patient who was a drowning victim, a 5-year-old girl who had fallen in the family swimming pool. When paramedics brought her in, they were doing CPR still. She had no pulse, no blood pressure, she wasn't breathing, and no signs of life. We brought her back to the ER room and we attempted to resuscitate her. I placed a breathing tube, and fortunately, after about 10 minutes, we got her pulse and blood pressure back. Family arrived and parents, of course, were extremely distraught. Dad particularly was really taking it hard. He was blaming himself. He was saying, I should have known better. It's all my fault. I should have known better. It's all my fault. I attempted to reassure him. I was like, sir, listen, this is not your fault. Accidents happen all the time. It was a complete accident. And he said, no, you don't understand. When I was a little kid, I went to stay with my grandparents, and they told me not to go down to the river that was right behind their house. I wandered down there anyways. I got in the river, I got in trouble, and I almost drowned. I started screaming for help. My grandpa ran out of the house, dove in the water, and he saved my life, but he lost his that day. And the dad said, first I killed my grandpa, now I almost killed my daughter. And I, again, tried to reassure him. I was like, sir, it's just an accident. It's not your fault. You know, everything will be okay. And the patient was admitted up to the pediatric ICU. A few days later, I'd gotten word that the little girl had woken up in the pediatric ICU and they had extubated her, taken out the breathing tube. So after my shift, I went up to visit with the family and the little girl. Obviously, the little girl wasn't talking too much because she's still recovering. So I'm talking to the mom and dad. They're extremely thankful. They're very grateful. And obviously, they're overwhelmingly ecstatic that she's going to survive this awful ordeal. So then I turn my attention to the little girl and I'm like, just sparking up natural conversation. Hey, do you remember me? And she's like, no. And I said, do you remember the nurses? Do you remember the paramedics? No. And out of nowhere, she goes, I remember Sam. And I said, who's Sam? She goes, I don't know. And I said, okay, well, what was Sam doing? Thinking, was he, doing chest compression, someone in the ER? I don't know. And she said, he was holding my hand. And I said, what did he look like? She said, he was wearing a hat and a funny jacket. And then I'm like, okay, I didn't know who she was talking about. Then the dad walks over and he's punching on his phone. And he pulls up a picture from Facebook and he points it at her and he goes, was that Sam? And she said, yeah, that's him. That's Sam. And dad turns to mom and he goes, oh my God, that's my grandpa. So his grandpa, who had died 25 years earlier, saving him from drowning, was there holding her hand as we were doing the resuscitation. Literal goosebumps to this very day.
Well, what do you think of that story shared by the doctor just now? And since this video is supposed to be released on a Sunday, and the season of Lent is just around the corner, I thought it's a good idea to share this clip of Father Carlos Martins with you. There are a lot of truths in this relatively short clip of him here, talking about the Mass, and it is also a very good reminder for everyone.
I hear people say all the time, well, I don't get a lot out of Mass. Who cares? Who asked you that? There's many things we do in life that you put up with. You know what? You're going to put up with giving God an hour of your time. And why don't you learn about the Mass, invest some time in it? Like, you're going into Mass with the attitude of trying to be entertained. And you know what? Mass is not entertaining because it's really not about you. You're giving God the justice, his due of being your God. And this is what he demands for you to do, to honor the sacrifice of his son. And so you do that. And at the same time, you do get graces, absolutely. But the point is, it's not about you. We have this attitude that we do religious things. Well, what am I going to get out of it? And, am I seeing a difference in my life? Not everything is about that. And it's you owe the God who purchased your salvation an hour of your time a week, pursuing him in the sacrament of confession. Then, now you've got the sacraments. Are you trying to eliminate sin from your life? Do you keep some porn stashed on your computer? Right? Do you keep some friends that when you get together with those friends, boy, the worst of you comes out, right? That they're driving you to sin. Not just necessarily the speech, but the actions, right? Beyond even just words. But words themselves are enough. Does the ugly version of you come out? those are friends you probably need to eliminate out of your life entirely, right? When you start drinking, is there an evil version of you that all of a sudden, holy smokes, when that guy comes out or that girl comes out? I met a church lady. So when I was a associate priest at a parish, wonderful, absolutely wonderful human being, so kind, so generous, and easily the number one volunteer. Was putting in over 25 hours a week every week in the church, just doing things. And the thing that she mentioned to me one day is that if she has a sip of alcohol, just the ugliest person comes out. And what she did was, she actually had a drink one day and bit in the shoulder her best friend, and her best friend turned around and kicked her and sent her flying across her garage, and toppled over these shelves. And all of a sudden, here's this war zone in her garage. And the next morning when she was sober again, she just said, "That's it," to her husband. "That's it. I'm not drinking anymore. Like, somebody I don't know and I don't like comes out of me every time I drink." Well, this is knowledge. That kind of self-knowledge. Some people can drink and it doesn't affect them. If you know what it does for you, hey, you need to give up the drink. So to keep the devil away, you have to close the windows and the doors to the devil. And most people already know 99% of the ways that he's able to come at you and he's able to win you over. So you don't need a priest to tell you, close those windows and doors. You should already know that. Right? Be mature about reality and make an adult decision about keeping yourself free of danger.
And since we just listened to Father Martin's talking about the Mass, let me share you another clip, but from a different priest this time. And it's going to be a clip of Father Joseph Iannuzzi, of a supposed priest possessed by a demon and still able to perform the Mass during his possession. Please listen to this carefully.
And the question is it true, according to what some say, that a priest can be possessed and even perform the Mass during his possession? The answer is no. The answer is no. Satan has an aversion toward the sacred. And I know this from experience with Father Gabriele Amorth. Whenever a person was possessed, and I mean really possessed in the full sense of the word, they couldn't approach anything sacred. Now, there were times when the demons would subdue themselves deliberately to try to deceive the priest from doing the exorcism, hide their presence, so to speak. But once the priest put the stole around the neck of the possessed, alleged possessed, made the sign of the cross, invoked the name of Jesus, then they grew violent immediately. They couldn't hold themselves back. Now, is it true that a priest, or even let's say a religious, a nun, can be influenced, infested, oppressed, obsessed by the devil? Yes, it can. They can be. But no, a person cannot be possessed and do the Mass at the same time. Now, I'm going to give you two cases where a person is possessed due to their own fault, and two cases where they experience what are considered symptoms of possession without their own fault, due to no fault of their own. Number one, these are two that are not responsible for their own condition, whether it's diabolical oppression, obsession, oppression, vexation, infestation. Those that God occasionally permits Satan to harass. Take, for example, Saint Jean Vianney, Saint Gemma Galgani, Blessed Anna da Foligno, Saint Padre Pio, the servant of God Luisa Picaretta, all of whom were attacked by Satan, some physically beaten. The purpose of their diabolical afflictions was due to no fault of their own. They allowed themselves to suffer to save souls, and God permitted Satan to be a means of their suffering with their consent. And their sufferings imposed by Satan purify them yet further and enable them to amass more merit by offering up their torments for other souls. In fact, there was a case I personally knew about when I was working with Father Gabriele Amorth in Rome of a daughter of a Salesian priest who was possessed. The priest couldn't help her. Father Gabriele Amorth, along with Father Monsignor Corrado Balducci and other exorcists, tried to exorcise her and banish the demons, but after several attempts, they were unsuccessful. So Father Gabriele Amorth went to Medjugorje to ask one of the seers to ask the Blessed Mother why these demons won't leave. And the answer that came back came from Vitska, one of the seers of Medjugorje, to Father Gabriele Amorth. She said, the Blessed Mother of Medjugorje said that only through many prayers before the Blessed Sacrament will these demons leave. Now, while Father Gabriele Amorth was doing an exorcism over, her name is Giovanna from Bergamo, Italy, city of Bergamo, sister of the Salesian priest. While Father Amorth was doing one of many exorcisms over her, he inquired in the name of Jesus, in the name of holy obedience, for the demons to reveal why they're there. And they said, she is a martyr and a saint. Through her sufferings imposed by us, she has saved over 1,000 priests' souls from hell. And that's why God allowed the sufferings to continue, you see. So in this case, God was allowing Satan, with her consent, to torment her. And through her offering up of these sufferings, however diabolical they were, she was saving souls from hell. Okay, that's one case. Another case where someone is not responsible for their diabolical affliction are those who, due to hexes, curses, evil eyes, spells, macumbas, fall victim to Satan's attacks. And one case was this woman I just mentioned, Giovanna from Bergamo. It was the result of a curse upon her while she was in her mother's womb from another. But the symptoms did not manifest themselves till later in life. Same case with Anneliese Michel, that they made the film about, entitled The Exorcism of Emily Rose. It was a true story. The film's about 80%, 85% true. The priests never went to jail, as the film shows. They were given time spent sentences, but she was freed shortly before she died from her diabolical affliction. But she was, despite being attacked by the devil, offering up the suffering for the salvation of souls. In these, there is no fault. They are victims, and they have come to accept and unite their vicarious sufferings with those of Christ for the salvation of souls. Now, there are two cases where people are responsible for their diabolical affliction. One, those whom Satan attacks who are culpable, who often expose themselves to bad persons and places, like fortune tellers, tarot card readers. Out of curiosity, they participate in seances, satanic rituals, blood covenants, or they invoke the dead. All of these practices put the soul at risk of receiving an evil spirit that won't leave, and even possession itself. I take for example the film The Exorcism, right? The famous film by Peter Blatty with the actress Linda Blair. True story, but in real life it was a boy. I went to the place where the exorcism happened in Washington, D.C. And I went to the stairs where the priest had allegedly fallen down at the end. And it was a boy in real life of a Protestant family. And the parents brought him to their local pastor, Protestant, and he had the boy sleep downstairs on a mattress on the floor. During the night, the mattress started bouncing with the boy on it. Now, the mattress is on a concrete floor and it's bouncing by itself. The priest got so scared, and he and his wife told the boy to leave, to go back. And but the point is, this all started with a little boy, this possession, because he, out of curiosity, experimented with a Ouija board. Here you have a kid, out of curiosity, being possessed. Why? Because he's exposing himself to things he should not. A Ouija board requires that you communicate with the spirits that you don't know their source or their providence or their origin. And that's the danger, okay? Now, the question is this, and most people don't ask. This boy was not alone when he was playing the Ouija board. How come the spirit entered him and not the other mates? Because he was given a gift by God of sensitivity to the spiritual world that the devil sees. Some people are more sensitive to the spiritual world than others by nature. It's not something they acquire, it's a gift that God gives. And Satan saw that and he availed himself of it. And he entered more easily into that war, and that's why that happened. Okay, now another case of someone who was responsible for their poor plight of diabolical affliction are those that are responsible for their own condition that persist in numerous mortal sins, which can lead to diabolic possession. It is possible that the moment Judas Iscariot left the Last Supper, as the gospel states, at that moment Satan entered him, it was because of his repeated mortal sins. He was a thief, even St. John the Evangelist said that. I had cases of young men and women with Father Amorth addicted to drugs who were living a life of crime and sexual perversion. And it is no wonder that some of the more difficult exorcisms involve women that have procured numerous abortions. This repeated habit of mortal sins disposes one to diabolic possession.
In the previous video, I shared a clip of Father Winston talking about spiritual openings, in the sense that these openings are how one is open to diabolical attacks. And one of you asked this question in the comment area, so I thought I should at least share this clip from my previous interview with Father Francis, and I really do hope you'll find this one helpful.
The sad thing is, and something that perhaps as we encounter with exorcism, is that there are some people who have been so traumatized by something that happened in their family or that happened in their church, some kind of abuse situation, bullying or sexual misconduct or whatever, that they're so psychologically traumatized by those experiences that anything associated with maybe religion or their family or something like that just makes them go into a psychologically dysfunctional state. Okay, I did a number of years ago. This is quite a long time ago, so I think I can tell the story. There was an entire family that, among other terrible things that happened, the father lined the whole family, mother and the kids, against the wall with a gun in his hand, right? And he started shooting. And he didn't shoot at any of the people, but he shot at the pictures of Jesus and Mary and the saints that were on the wall above them, all right? And it was, of course, a horrible experience, especially for children, to experience that from their own father. And at first, at least 2, if not 3 of the children growing up began to show symptoms that looked like demonic possession, okay? Because they had aversion to any kind of sacred object, all right? Anything to do with the church, anything to do with Christ, and they would sometimes break out into really uncontrollable rage and fury, okay? Now, as I worked with this family and counseled them, and they told me their story and a lot of other things that we did praying together, I began to realize that there was a qualitative difference between the rage that would explode out of a couple of them during prayer and what I had seen in real cases of possession. And I realized that this was like possession, but it wasn't really possession. It was the manifestation of a traumatic state of mind, all right? And little by little, we worked on that, and they had a hard time accepting that because they've been told many times these trance states, and trance states can be very, very subtle, all right? And you got to watch carefully what the quality of the trance and what brings it on, cause and effect. And little by little, you'll be able to tell the difference between something that's psychological or hypnotic and something that really indicates a demonic presence, okay? There's a lot that one could say about that.
Well then, that will be all for the video this time. And as always, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us. And hopefully all of you have learned so much from this video. And remember, if ever you have any feedback or suggestion, please let us know in the comments below. Anyway, if you like what we do and you'd like to support us, I left a link to our PayPal donation in the description box below, and from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for your continuous support, contributions, and prayers. And until the next one, thanks again for watching and may God bless you.